By the next morning, her name had vanished from Northlight's website. The board released a sterile statement about ethical concerns and leadership restructuring, but the truth, my truth, was already spreading online. Screenshots, articles, whispers, in the creative world. And there it was, my story, my campaign, my work, credited finally to me. Clients started reaching out, not with pity, but with respect. One of them offered me a position, not as a designer this time, but as a creative lead for their own agency. I didn't hesitate. I signed that contract with a steady hand, realizing that the best revenge isn't ruining someone else's future, it's reclaiming your own. Lena tried to fight back, of course. She posted long, dramatic rants about jealous colleagues and cancel culture, but screenshots have no emotion. Proof doesn't lie, and within weeks, she became invisible, her once polished reputation crumbling under the weight of her own deception. Rumor had it, she sold her car, left the city, started freelancing under a fake name. I didn't care to check. Because I'd learned something important. When you finally heal, you stop watching the person who broke you. A few weeks later, I cleaned my apartment. That golden-wrapped gift still sat on the shelf. The red "refused by recipient" stamp faded with time. For months, I'd hated it, the symbol of rejection, betrayal, heartbreak. But now, it looked different. It wasn't a reminder of what I lost. It was proof of what I survived. So I unwrapped it one last time. The silver music box gleamed softly in the afternoon light. I turned the crank, and that familiar tune played again. The same melody that once belonged to friendship, now rewritten as my victory song, and that's when it hit me. The perfect, poetic irony of it all. Lena had refused the one thing that could have saved her, a second chance. She returned my gift unopened. And in doing so, she returned my power. Now every December, I keep that box on my desk. A small, shining reminder that sometimes the universe wraps justice in silence, stamps it "return to sender," and sends it right back where it belongs. So if anyone watching this has ever been betrayed by a friend, a lover, or a boss, don't rush your revenge. Build it with patience. Let karma find its address, and when it does, trust me, it'll be signed, sealed, and beautifully delivered, because sometimes the best gift you can give a betrayer is watching you rise higher than they ever dreamed. Have you ever had someone betray your trust and regret it later? Comment your story below. I read every single one. And if you love seeing poetic justice served cold, subscribe for more true-style revenge stories that'll give you chills. I never thought a cardboard box could break my heart, until the one I mailed to my best friend came back to me, unopened, stamped in red ink. Refused by recipient. I remember just staring at it. My name, neat handwriting, carefully wrapped with gold ribbon, now covered in postal dust and rejection. I felt my fingers go cold. It wasn't just a gift. It was an apology and a goodbye. I guess I should start from the beginning, before Christmas became the ugliest day of my life. My name's Ava Miles, 26, graphic designer and hopeless believer in chosen family. That's what I used to call Lena, my best friend since college. We'd survived everything together, bad breakups, late-night ramen, and rent crises. She was my sister in every way that mattered, or at least that's what I believed, until December 12th. We both worked at the same company, Northlight Creative, a boutique design firm in Seattle. I had just finished my biggest project, a marketing campaign that was supposed to secure my promotion. Lena helped me with it, or so I thought. The night before the final pitch, she offered to polish my slides while I rested. I trusted her completely. The next morning, I watched in stunned silence as Lena stood before the boardroom, presenting my campaign as her own. Every color choice, every tagline, every late-night sketch I'd made, stolen, word for word. When I confronted her afterward, she just smiled and said, "It's not personal, Ava. It's business. Don't make it awkward." And just like that, she walked away, leaving me jobless, humiliated, and branded as a liar by the company I'd built my career around. I spent weeks in silence, replaying it over and over, trying to understand how someone could betray me so smoothly. But then Christmas came. I couldn't stand the thought of carrying that bitterness into a new year. So I wrapped a gift for her, a small music box she'd always loved in college, engraved with the words, "To second chances." It was my peace offering, my way of saying I forgive you, even if you don't deserve it. But when that box returned, unopened, with that red stamp like a wound across the top, something inside me changed. Because here's the thing about forgiveness. It only works if the other person has a soul to receive it. And standing in my apartment, holding that rejected gift, I realized Lena never had one. So, I placed the box on my desk, stared at her name and whispered, "Merry Christmas. Lena, you just refused the last good thing I'll ever give you." And that's when I decided, the next gift she receives from me won't be wrapped in gold. If I'm honest, the betrayal didn't come out of nowhere. The red flags were there, tiny cracks. I chose to ignore because I thought loyalty could fix anything. It started with little things, like how Lena suddenly began staying late at work, something she'd never done before. She used to be the first one packing up, always joking that creativity doesn't exist after 6 p.m. But then, I'd leave the office, and when I returned the next morning, I'd find my sketches missing from my desk, or a new version of our shared presentation mysteriously updated in her Drive folder. When I asked her, she'd laugh lightly and say, "Oh, I just reorganized it for you. You're too messy." She always said it in that teasing tone that made it sound harmless. But there was something about the way she avoided my eyes that made my stomach twist. Then there were the private meetings. Our boss, Mr. Calder, started calling her into his office alone more and more often. Before, he barely remembered her name. Suddenly, he was praising her in team meetings, giving her my tasks, my accounts, even my clients. I told myself it was a coincidence, that maybe she was finally getting the recognition she deserved. But when I overheard her on the phone one evening, whispering my name followed by a sharp, "Don't worry, she won't find out," I felt the first real crack in our friendship. The next day, she acted like nothing happened. She brought me coffee, complimented my outfit, laughed at my jokes. I smiled back, pretending I hadn't heard a thing. Because the truth is, I didn't want to believe it, but the tension only grew. I began waking up with anxiety, second-guessing every word I said around her. I'd share ideas during brainstorming sessions, only to hear them repeated later, slightly rephrased, as if they were hers. At night, I'd sit in my apartment scrolling through our old photos, birthdays, road trips, lazy Sundays with face masks and popcorn, trying to understand when friendship turned into competition. Then came the money issue. We'd both contributed to a shared freelance gig, a small brand design project we were handling together. When the client paid, Lena said she'd handle the transfer. I trusted her. But the payment never showed up in my account. Weeks passed, excuses piled up. Bank delay, client error, technical glitch. Eventually, I stopped asking. Because by then, I realized the truth. Lena wasn't just keeping secrets. She was slowly erasing me, from our work, our projects, and even our friendship. Still, I stayed quiet. Because that's what you do when you love someone who's hurting you. You keep hoping the real version of them will come back. But the real Lena was already gone. I just didn't know yet. That she'd returned to finish what she started. The morning it all came crashing down was supposed to be the best day of my career. It was December 12th, presentation day for the biggest campaign Northlight had ever landed. Months of sleepless nights, sketches on coffee-stained napkins, and creative pitches that lived and died on my laptop. This was my moment, or at least it was supposed to be. When I walked into the conference room that morning, I noticed something strange. Lena was already standing at the front, smiling nervously, clutching a sleek USB drive. The projector glowed behind her, waiting. Our boss, Mr. Calder, nodded at her. "Ready when you are, Lena." I froze. Why was she presenting my campaign? I whispered, "Hey, where's my deck?" I was supposed to lead. She didn't even look at me. Just pressed the clicker and began, "Good morning, everyone. Today, I'm proud to present my vision for Northlight's holiday campaign. The gift that comes back." The words hit me like a punch. The gift that comes back. My title, my concept, my entire project. Slide after slide, she presented every single design I had built from scratch. The color palettes, slogans, storyboards, all of it. The board nodded approvingly, even clapped at one point. And there I was, sitting in the back row, nails digging into my palms, trying not to scream. When it ended, Mr. Calder shook her hand. "Brilliant work. Lena, this is promotion-worthy material." My vision blurred. Promotion-worthy. Mine. After the meeting, I confronted her in the hallway. My voice trembled as I asked, "Why would you do that?" She smiled. That same smile I once trusted. "Relax, Ava. You're overreacting." "We worked on it together, didn't we?" "No," I whispered. "I did it." Then next time, protect your files better," she interrupted softly, leaning closer. "This is how the real world works. You should thank me for showing you." Her perfume, the same vanilla scent from our college days, suddenly made me sick. I wanted to scream, to tell Calder the truth, but Lena had already spun her web. "I was too emotional, too unstable," she'd said behind my back. And by the end of the week, HR called me in to let me go for professionalism concerns. I remember packing my desk, eyes burning, while Lena stood across the room, pretending to look busy. She didn't even flinch when I walked past her. That night, I sat on my apartment floor surrounded by boxes of my things, the glow of Christmas lights mocking me from across the street. She'd stolen everything. My job, my future, my peace, and yet I still mailed her a gift 2 weeks later. Because somewhere, deep down, I wanted to believe she'd feel guilty, that she'd open it and remember who we used to be. But when that package came back unopened, stamped "refused by recipient," I knew. Lena hadn't just stolen my career, she'd buried the last piece of my heart and marked it "return to sender." For weeks after the gift came back, I couldn't bring myself to touch it. It sat on my desk, that small, gold-wrapped box, a haunting reminder of everything I'd lost. Lena's betrayal played in my mind like a broken record. Every laugh we'd shared, every secret I'd whispered, twisted now, poisoned by what she'd done. I stopped answering calls, stopped leaving the apartment. My savings were draining fast, and the world felt like it had forgotten me. One night, I finally opened the box, not because I wanted to, but because I needed to feel something. Inside was the little music box I'd bought for her. Silver, delicate, engraved with "to second chances." I turned the tiny crank, and a soft tune filled the silence. It was the lullaby Lena and I used to hum in college when we pulled all-nighters. Listening to it now hurt, but beneath that ache was something sharper. A spark. Because that's when I realized something. She hadn't just betrayed me. She'd underestimated me. She thought returning my gift was the end of our story, that she'd won and I'd stay broken. But I wasn't broken. I was learning. The next morning, I forced myself to leave the apartment. I went to my favorite cafe, the one where Lena and I used to brainstorm. I sat in the corner booth with my old laptop and opened a blank document. For the first time in weeks, I began sketching. At first, my hands trembled. But then the lines started flowing, smoother, bolder. It wasn't for Northlight or Lena or anyone else. It was for me. That same afternoon, I got a message from a former client of ours, one who'd left Northlight because of internal drama. She asked if I was freelancing now. I almost said no. But then I saw Lena's name pop up on LinkedIn. tagged in a post celebrating her promotion to creative director, the job that should have been mine. That was my trigger. I took a deep breath and replied to the client. Yes, I'm open for new projects. That single message felt like oxygen. From there, I rebuilt, slowly, stubbornly. I worked late nights again, not for survival this time, but for vengeance disguised as growth. I poured every ounce of hurt into designs that spoke louder than words ever could. And then, one evening, I noticed something strange. My new designs were trending online. People were sharing them, praising the fresh, authentic emotion behind them. For the first time, my name was being recognized. My name. I looked over at the returned gift sitting on my shelf, the red refused stamp still visible, and smiled faintly. That rejection wasn't an ending. It was my beginning. Lena had taken my career, but she'd accidentally given me something far more powerful. A reason to rise. Revenge. I learned isn't a single blow. It's an architecture. Careful, patient, quiet until the building collapses. I refused to be the person who screamed and stormed out. If Lena wanted a war, I'd fight like a strategist, not a child. Step 1. Gather the receipts. I started with the obvious, my files. I dug through old drives, cached emails, and drafts I'd saved on my phone. There were fragments everywhere, earlier versions of taglines, timestamps on exported PDFs, and autosave entries that showed the evolution of the campaign from my first sketch to the final deck. It was messy work, like archaeology, but every file was a tool. Step 2. Get technical. A former classmate, Omar, now an IT consultant, owed me a favor. He ran forensic checks on the shared drives and recovered version histories that Northlight's admins said were gone. He pulled timestamps that matched my late-night edits, server logs showing Lena's access times, and copies of the presentation stored in places she couldn't explain. When Omar handed me the folder of proof, my hands didn't shake as much as I expected. They steadied. Step 3. Paper trail the money. I still hadn't recovered the payment from that freelance gig. I tracked invoices, bank transfers, and chat logs with the client. There it was. An email thread showing Lena promising to forward funds, followed by silence, and then a canceled transfer. The client, embarrassed and loyal to me, agreed to a sworn statement. It wasn't just pride on the line anymore. There was a pattern of theft. Step 4. Line up allies. I quietly messaged former colleagues and clients, people Lena had burned or lied to. Some had stories of favoritism, unexplained account changes, and shady agreements with Mr. Calder. I didn't ask for loyalty. I asked for facts, names, receipts. People are easier to convince when you show them the truth instead of your anger. Step 5. Set the bait, legally. I created a decoy. A faux pitch, incomplete but convincing, and led a carefully controlled leak route, via a private client contact, lead back to Lena's public portfolio. She, hungry for recognition, took the bait and reposted the decoy as her own latest work. It was small, practically invisible, exactly the kind of vanity move she'd make when she felt untouchable. All of this moved in silence. Lena continued to ascend on LinkedIn, collecting congratulatory comments and champagne photos. Mr. Calder gave speeches about new leadership. To the outside world, she was untouchable. That arrogance was my greatest ally. Every night I organized evidence, wrote timelines, and rehearsed how I would present the case without letting emotion fracture the narrative. I wanted disbelief to turn into doubt, and doubt into a collapse so inevitable it looked like fate. By December 24th, I had a sealed file. Emails, metadata, bank records, client statements, and proof of the decoy repost. I slid the folder into my bag and felt something cold and honest settle in my chest. Lena still smiled at holiday parties, convinced she owned the room. I was ready to make sure everyone else saw what she really owned, and what she had taken. The trap was set. The lights were about to go on. I didn't want fireworks. I wanted the quiet sound of truth landing where it couldn't be ignored. The night of Northlight's holiday party, the office glittered with fairy lights and champagne breath. Lena stood under a halo of applause, newly crowned creative director, laughing into her glass. Calder made a grand toast about vision and leadership. The room smelled like success and cheap perfume. Mine smelled like cold metal and resolve. Earlier that day, I'd sent my sealed file, the forensic logs. Timestamps, bank statements, client declarations, and the decoy repost screenshot to 3 places at once: HR's confidential inbox, the company's legal counsel, and one journalist friend who loved stories about corporate greed. I didn't tell anyone I was there. I wanted the reveal to be inevitable, not theatrical. But fate, it turns out, loves a little theater. Halfway through the party, Calder cleared his throat to announce Lena's first campaign as creative director. He cued the projector. Lena beamed and clicked the remote. A slideshow filled the screen, glossy photos, catchy slogans. The crowd leaned in. I sat in the back, palms sweating, the returned music box in my coat pocket like a tiny metronome of revenge. On the second slide, instead of another mock-up, the projector stuttered. The image flickered. Then the company legal counsel, a woman I'd messaged that morning, walked up, took the remote, and said, "We need to pause. This presentation contains material under investigation." Her voice was calm, but the room sucked the air out of itself. Calder's smile froze. Lena's face, seconds ago incandescent, drained into a pale map of panic. Someone shouted. A phone lit up. The journalist's email had gone live. Screenshots of our evidence uploaded to a private thread she'd promised would prompt action. HR called an impromptu meeting. Phones recorded everything. And then I watched Lena unravel in a way I never imagined possible. She tried to laugh it off, to charm the board with flattery. But the server logs Omar had pulled were brutal in their clarity. Timestamps showing Lena accessing my files at 2:13 a.m. 3:02 a.m. Versions overwritten and exported from my account. The client's sworn statement about missing funds glowed on the screen. The decoy repost, her vanity bait, was the nail hammered in with the precision of my planning. Someone read a line from one of her own messages out loud. "Don't worry. She won't find out." That single sentence landed like a verdict. Security escorted her out, while she screamed about misunderstanding. Calder tried to salvage the moment, but the board was already whispering, leaning toward the counsel, eyes hard. The journalist took a few discreet photos. Colleagues who had once applauded now avoided her gaze. The promotion banner that had been draped at the front of the room sagged like a lie being folded away. When it was over, the hush in the room felt like applause, only for truth. I stood there, the music box in my palm, and wound it once. The tiny lullaby spilled out into a space that had been full of noise, and for the first time in months, I let myself breathe. Lena's downfall was not a scream. It was an unraveling, paperwork, witnesses, and every small theft laid bare. She left with no title, no clientele, and a reputation that would be hard to rebuild. But as the party dispersed and strangers offered me sympathetic looks, I realized revenge had changed me in ways I hadn't anticipated. The trap had closed. The lights had come on. The next question, what happens after, loomed like the last slow note of a song. The world didn't end the night Lena fell. It just shifted. Quietly, decisively. Like the moment before snow starts to fall,